That, my friends, is what you call a global rebellion. That's certainly what scholars are calling it. In fact, it's the title of a relatively recent study that just came out on the mass uprisings all over the world of conservatives, traditionalists, patriots who are pushing back against our secular globalist elite who want to rule us rather than represent us and shove their woke leftist values down our throats. Woke values that deliberately seek to morally weaken us so that we become passive, compliant subjects, subservient to the political and economic and environmental whims and desires of the demons in Davos and the dolts in DC. And as you can see, the jig is up. The global rebellion has begun. Patriots are rising up all over the world to restore their national sovereignty, declare for all to hear that we are free men and free men will not be ruled. The worldwide tide has turned and it is just getting started. And I'm just getting started. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are live on both YouTube and Rumble. Super chats and super stickers are up. Send me your questions. I will answer them in due course. We got a jam-packed show today, as they say. We got pride parades getting crushed. We got trans surgeries getting banned. We got woke Hollywood literally imploding right before our very eyes. All as patriot movies like The Sound of Freedom are storming the box office. I mean, gang, do you smell that? That's called freedom. It doesn't get better than this. We've got all that and more in our special Livestream Friday broadcast. Again, super chats, super stickers are up. Send me your questions. And before you do anything else, if you're a patriot and you're not prepared to defend your home and your family, you need to click on that link below and visit our good friends over at Countrywide Concealed and get your concealed carry permit once and for all. If you're like me, right, you've been putting this off forever. You've been wanting to do it. You've always meant to do it, but you've been put off because of all the ridiculous barriers and requirements, the pain and the hassle of getting what's ironically our constitutional right. Well, guess what? There's now an amazing solution to all that. Countrywide Concealed is probably the quickest and easiest way for you to get your permit. And the coolest thing is that the permit is good for the vast majority of the country. So you don't just get a permit to carry and your concealed carry in your own state. You get it to conceal carry in 84% of the whole of the nation. It's quick and as easy as just watching a video and taking a quiz. And thanks to Countrywide Concealed, your family is that much safer no matter where you go. Getting a concealed carry license has literally never been easier. So click on that link below right now and join the millions of patriots who've taken back their rights with Countrywide Concealed today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. So Tbilisi, Georgia. The patriots in Tbilisi, Georgia aren't fooling around anymore. It's being widely reported that the annual Pride Parade in the Georgian capital had to be canceled due to violent disruptions by anti-LGBT activists. Josh, that is the wrong B-roll, my friend. Sorry, gang. Sorry. There we go. Now we got Tbilisi. There we are. That's in Michigan. We'll be talking about that in a sec. It's being widely reported the annual Pride Parade in the Georgian capital had to be canceled due to violent disruptions by anti-LGBTQ plus activists affiliated with so-called far-right patriot groups, insurrectionists. Organizers for the Pride Parade were livid. They accused police authorities of basically siding with the patriot protesters and that they failed to prevent the disturbances. And they failed to protect parade attendees. Of course, as you could see, there certainly were clashes between police and protesters, but they appeared to be temporary as pro-traditional families values activists successfully stormed the Pride Festival and began setting pride flags on fire. and dismantling pride displays. Tbilisi Pride, the organization that sponsored the event, is accusing the Georgian government of coordinating with these disruptive so-called far-right groups, these insurrectionists, and of course, various international organizations such as the UN and the ultra-woke US Embassy condemned the violence and called for the protection of LGBTQI plus rights. Now, if you don't know, this is all just par for the course in the nation of Georgia, okay? Georgia is a very, very conservative, religiously conservative, traditionalist nation. The Georgian Orthodox Church is the single most trusted public institution among them all, right? Take the government, take the banks, police, you name it. Georgian Orthodox Church consistently polls as the number one most trusted public institution. Georgia, in many respects, is rising up as a model post-secular nation. The Georgian Orthodox Church, more or less for the last 30 years, has been filling the mass vacuum that was left with the collapse of communism. So just as communism provided the ideological glue that held society together as a result of its fall in 1991 with the breakup of the Soviet Union, now Orthodox Christianity is filling that ideological vacuum. 85% of the population of Georgia claims to be Orthodox Christian. 85%. They have a weekly church attendance rate of 20%, which is actually very high among European nations. European nations never had very high church attendance rates. That tended to be more of a Puritan emphasis in the British Isles and the United States. Just to give you an idea of the national commitment to the Georgian Orthodox Church, check this out. 75% of respondents in a recent poll said that they would never vote for a political party that was critical of the Georgian Orthodox Church. How's that for loyalty? Again, remember, after decades of communist rule, the Georgian Orthodox Church has become the symbol of national revival for Georgians. And so, needless to say, Georgian politicians are constantly posturing and groveling as pro-Christian, pro-Orthodox, pro-traditional values. In fact, a politician would have little political legitimacy if there were not in some way, shape, or form, they weren't in some way, shape, or form endorsed by the church. But this revival of traditional values in Georgia really is in many respects just par for the course of what's happening in Eastern Europe as a whole. The Pew Research Center has recently published some very interesting findings when it comes to the moral persuasions and commitments among Europeans, particularly in relation to same-sex marriage and particularly among young adults, okay? So we're talking adults between the ages of 18 and 34 were surveyed by Pew, and what they found was that while Western European young adults were overwhelmingly approving of same-sex marriage, that perspective changed dramatically as soon as you cross eastward into Central Europe and beyond. And the discrepancy of perspective was really quite dramatic. So whereas 6% of Danes and only 12% of Finns and only 7% of Spaniards stated that they opposed same-sex marriage, those numbers rise exponentially when one reaches Poland, where 50% of young people between 18 and 36, 50% of young people oppose same-sex marriage. 1 in 2. Now, I mean, we literally go from 7% opposition to 50% opposition when you cross from Western to Central Europe. It's an absolutely punctuated, disproportionate leap, but that's just where it begins. The discrepancy increases the farther we go into Eastern Europe. So 75% of Serbs, 82% of Ukrainians, 86% of Russians, and as you might have guessed, 94% of Georgians, beat out only by the Armenians, 95% of Armenians, all absolutely oppose the notion of same-sex marriage. And so here we're talking not merely an astonishing discrepancy between West and East, but indeed an astonishing level of commitment to traditional conceptions of sexual and marital ethics among Central and Eastern European nations. It's absolutely astonishing. And keep in mind, may I remind you, these stats are coming from young adults, primarily Gen Zers. These stats are from respondents between the ages of 18 and 36. I mean, let that hit you. And so it's no wonder that in the midst of all of that, we're getting news today that the Russian Federation has officially banned all gender reassignment surgeries from their nation. The Russian Duma, their parliament, unanimously, I mean, you got to get that. The Russian Duma unanimously voted to institute a total and complete ban in all so-called gender-affirming surgeries. That's what the panicked articles about this are screaming and crying about. Now, this law follows on the heels of Russian President Vladimir Putin's recent signing of sweeping legislation that bans what they're calling all LGBT propaganda from the nation. So this far-reaching bill, now law, prohibits any and all content that depicts non-traditional sexual relations, gender reassignment, pedophilia in a positive light. So the law extends to all social media platforms, all advertising, all mass media such as television, cinema, and the like. Now, to understand what's really going on here, Putin's signing of the anti-LGBT propaganda law is widely seen as the latest in Putin's internationalizing of the woke culture wars, okay? So wokeness and the resistance against wokeness isn't just happening here in the West or here in the United States. It's happening now all over the world. Putin has long seen the culture wars very differently than we do. This is one of the key things we have to understand when it comes to Vladimir Putin. For us, the culture wars are a civil war. They're playing out as Democrat versus Republican, left versus right, red versus blue, right? MAGA versus Rhino, you name it. For Putin, and for, frankly, 90% of the rest of the world, the culture wars, are not civil wars. They're a foreign invasion. That's what you got to get. The culture wars are not civil wars. They're not a war within their nation. The culture wars are a hostile foreign invasion. Wokeness for Putin is not an issue within Russia. Wokeness is a foreign invader that's trying to destroy Russia. And so what Putin has been very effective in doing is weaponizing a radically anti-woke sentiment among both the Russian population as well as a vast majority of the non-Western world, which is upwards of 90% of the world's population, right? I mean, keep in mind, the Western world was 30% of global population at the turn of the 20th century. By 2050, it's expected to collapse down to about 10% of the world's population. And the world's population is radically galvanized against wokeness. And Putin is seen as one of its major leaders. Putin has galvanized this massive anti-woke international population in the form of a distinctively civilizational weaponization. So Putin's not engaged in so much in a political weaponization as if he was trying to politically weaponize wokeness against his political enemies within Russia. As you can see, nobody in the Duma buys this. Nobody in Russia buys this, right? This is a civilizational weaponization. This is Russia representing the non-Western traditionalist world versus the bullies in Brussels, the demons in Davos, and the dolts in DC. Okay, so it's a clash, as he sees it, between two mutually exclusive civilizations. One that promises to be a brave new progressive liberal world guided by secular anti-traditionalist values versus a 1,000-year Russian civilization, Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, Turkish civilization, Sub-Sahara Africa civilization, medieval civilization, Middle Ages civilization, and the like. And that's precisely what Putin has been saying in his speeches since at least 2012, when scholars noted a very marked civilizational turn in his speeches, where he was saying over and over again that Russia was in a great civilizational conflict with a decadent and decaying West. Check this out.
Видим, как многие евроатлантические страны фактически пошли по пути отказа от своих корней, в том числе и от христианских ценностей, составляющих основу западной цивилизации. Отрицаются нравственные начала и любая традиционная идентичность, национальная, культурная, религиозная или даже половая. Проводится политика, ставящая на один уровень многодетную семью и однополое партнерство, веру в Бога или веру в сатану. Эксцессы политкорректности доходят до того, что всерьез говорится о регистрации партий, ставящих своей целью пропаганду педофилии. Люди во многих европейских странах стыдятся и боятся говорить о своей религиозной принадлежности. Праздники отменяют уже. Или называют их как-то по-другому, стыдливо прячут саму суть этого праздника, нравственные основы этих праздников. И эту модель пытаются агрессивно навязывать всему миру. Убежден, это прямой путь к деградации и примитивизации, глубокому демографическому и нравственному кризису. Что еще может быть большим свидетельством морального кризиса человеческого социума, как не утрата способности к самовоспроизводству? А сегодня практически все развитые страны уже не могут воспроизводить себя, причем даже с помощью миграции. Без ценностей, заложенных в христианстве и других мировых религиях, без формирования без формировавшихся тысячелетиями норм морали и нравственности, люди неизбежно утратят человеческое достоинство. И мы считаем естественным и правильным эти ценности отстаивать. Нужно уважать право любого меньшинства на отличие, но и право большинства. Право большинства не должно быть поставлено под сомнение.
So apologies to our podcast listeners who couldn't see the subtitles there, but the gist of the speech was that the woke West has largely lost their traditional moral values, which results in an implosion of human dignity, most especially evidenced in the collapse of reproduction. So for Putin, as he pointed out in his speech, there's no greater, more poignant sign of social degeneration than the loss of what he calls reproductive function. So a declining population is indicative of a dying culture. A declining population is indicative of a dying culture. And so Putin, indeed, most of all non-Western nations, see an inextricable link between the advent of what's called lifestyle values or alternative lifestyle values and the implosion of reproductive function. I mean, this was precisely the conclusion of University of London scholar Eric Kaufman. He argued recently that liberal values undermine procreation precisely because liberal values undermine the family. I mean, liberalism redefines having children as nothing more than a mere lifestyle choice. And you can't redefine having children as just a mere lifestyle choice and expect your society to continue to repopulate. It's what Kaufman calls the soft underbelly of liberalism. In other words, secular liberalism entails its own demographic contradiction. Liberalism necessitates the freedom not to reproduce. And so, as it turns out, secular liberalism is an inherently futile ideology. It's a futile belief system that by its nature implodes in on itself. It undermines civilization. If you can't reproduce yourself, you're not going to continue to exist. And as you can see, Russia and Eastern Europe want no part in this. And by the way, who in the West is talking like that? If you were watching that by way of live stream, again, apologies to our podcast audience. By the way, we just hit 15 million downloads. So a huge shout out to our podcast audience. Love you guys. But I mean, who in the West, what politician talks like this? What we all know we're going through a demographic implosion and no one gives a shit. No one, not a single Republican that I can even think of talks about the concerning nature of an imploding demographic. We're way below the 2.1 replacement level. I mean, the good news, the reason why I'm not worried about it, is because conservative Christians are having more kids than ever, especially when you take in child mortality rates having been almost completely reversed. We're having more kids than ever, and liberals aren't. They're way below the 2.1 replacement level. So Kaufman himself said basically conservative religionists are taking over the world at this point, right? The Amish double every 20 years, and it's not because of conversions, I assure you that. But what's so astonishing here with Putin's speech and so forth, it's not just the non-Western world that's rising up against all of this woke insanity. Amazingly, we're seeing a massive uprising happening even inside the West, and not just inside the West, but inside some of the bluest of blue regions in our entire nation. In other words, the culture wars are a civil war, and we're beginning to take ground from the woke enemy. It's absolutely amazing. You're going to love this. But first, gang, you may have heard that gold is now becoming king again, literally king of the world. And the latest announcement coming out from the BRICS Economic Union, who are going to have their summit in August, they're going to be putting together what a new age of gold-backed currency. And now it's your time to get in before the rest of the world figures this out. We've got amazing friends of this channel who can help you to do just that. We've partnered with the top-rated precious metals company, Goldco, who've helped patriots across the nation move over, get this, $1 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars into gold and silver. They're absolutely amazing. Click on the link below. And for those with retirement accounts, the patriots over at Goldco are offering up to $10,000 in free silver when opening up a qualified IRA account with them. And for cash buyers, you're going to love this. You can get bonus silver just for making a purchase. So if you buy $15,000 worth of precious metals, you're going to get $750 in bonus silver, free silver. If you buy $25,000 of precious metals, you're going to get $1,200 worth of bonus silver. But that's only as long as supply lasts. So don't wait. Click on that link below. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground floor as more and more nations return to the gold standard. This is real. This is happening. And this is going to change things like never before. Click on that link below right now. All right, so what's happening in Georgia and Russia and Eastern Europe is actually happening, if you can believe it, even in the very heart of the Democrat Party. This is what's so astonishing in terms of this mass revival of traditionalist values. It's even penetrating the bluest of blue regions in our nation. In Hamtramck, Michigan, that's our nation's first Muslim majority city council. That city council recently voted unanimously. Do you see the pattern here? That city council voted unanimously to officially ban the LGBT pride flag from being flown on any and all city property. Now, what makes this ban all the more interesting is that it happened in a city that votes overwhelmingly Democrat. As I understand it, every member on that city council is a Democrat. Hamtramck is part of Wayne County, Michigan, and Wayne County votes on average 70%. You heard that right, 70% Democrat. They are as Democrat as, like, Wyoming is Republican. And what's even more astonishing, this isn't the first time Michigan Muslims have pushed back against woke values. You may remember the explosive local school board meeting in the city of Dearborn, just 17 miles from Hamtramck. Dearborn, which is also one of the most densely Muslim populated areas in the United States and also heavily Democrat, it was the site of a school board meeting that erupted when parents got word that books involving explicit LGBT content were being given to their kids. And this was the result of that.
Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out!
Now, keep in mind, gang, This was happening in one of the bluest of blue districts in the nation. Vote them out. Those weren't, those weren't J6 protesters coming out to school board meetings saying vote them out. Those are loyal Democrat constituencies coming together and saying, we've had it with woke values. We've had it with woke values. We may still vote Democrat, but we're going to eradicate wokeness from the Democratic Party, at least from our region of it. It's not just Russia. It's not just Eastern Europe. It's not just the Middle East. It's not just Sub-Saharan Africa, like Uganda, for example, and their law there, or Kenya. Gang, this traditionalist uprising, it's happening even within the belly of the beast of the Democrat Party, the Soros-funded Democrat Party. And to make matters even worse, they're now losing Hollywood. Hollywood, which has for the last few decades been the chief pop culture propaganda disseminator of everything liberal and woke, is literally imploding right before our very eyes. For the first time in 60 years, in 6 decades, both writers and actors are officially on strike. Hollywood is literally on the brink as it experiences its first double strike in 60 years. I mean, this is just but the latest blow to Hollywood. As many of you know, the Writers Guild has been on strike for the past 2 years, but just the other day, the Screen Actors Guild voted unanimously to recommend a strike, which will in effect cripple promotion of any upcoming films as well as the production of new ones. Now, on top of all that, Hollywood's revenue at the box office is imploding. I mean, gang, theater audiences have shrunk by 50% over the last 4 years. Again, you have to let that hit you. Hollywood has lost 50% of its audience. In fact, in 2022 alone, Hollywood saw a staggering 40% decline in its ticket buying audience. So you can't blame it on COVID, right? Hollywood saw its worst ticket sales decline even a year after theaters were all officially reopened. And you can't blame it on streaming services like Netflix. And that's because Netflix itself has seen its market value cratering nearly 30%, lost $42 billion in value after the company announced that their subscribers shrank for the first time since 2011. And of course, this is all happening. This is the irony. I mean, you could cut the irony with a knife. This is all happening at the exact same time. The very movie that no one in Hollywood would even come close to touching. They wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. And what's his name? The Finnish comedian Ismo. Ismo always thought that was a funny literal concept. He's like, what about the people who would touch you with a 10-foot pole, right? But I'm not going to get, I am not going to diverge. I'm not going to get distracted. The very movie that no one in Hollywood would even come close to touching, The Sound of Freedom, is crushing it at the box office. It's number 1 again. I mean, it beat out Disney's freaking Indiana Jones with multi-million dollars behind it, open in every single theater, playing in multiplex theaters on the hour, every hour. The fact is that Hollywood is imploding precisely because of these same dynamics that we're seeing rising up all over the world. Liberal woke values have had the inadvertent effect of reawakening and reinvigorating traditional moral values and commitments. That's why Hollywood is collapsing. At the same time, The Sound of Freedom is surging and topping the box office charts, as it were. We're seeing both a collapse of woke values and a resurgence of traditional values. That's the amazing trends. Those are those concurrent trends that we're seeing happening all over the world. And there's simply nothing, absolutely nothing the woke left can do to stop it. So be encouraged, gang. A new world is rising. I know it's hard. I know there's all kinds of obstructions in our way. I know there are all kinds of shenanigans. I mean, they lost the courts, as you could see. They lost the court, the Supreme Court. So now they're engaged in other, they've pivoted to the legislations. But be encouraged, a new world is indeed rising, a nationalist, populist, and traditionalist world that promises to end this current epidemic of woke insanity once and for all. Over to you, gang. As Josh, our moderator, puts together your questions for me, you have got to click on that link below and get yourself Mike Lindell's brand new pillows. He's done the impossible. All right. Mike has taken what was already one of the most comfortable pillows on the market, and he's made it even better. That's right. My Pillow 2.0 is here. With Mike's new cooling fabric technology combined with his original My Pillow fill, this is truly the most comfortable pillow out there. It's always cool to the touch and provides some of the best neck support I've ever experienced in a pillow, leading to some incredible sleep. Now, for a limited time, Mike is providing over $150 off his new My Pillow if you use promo code Turley. That's right. MyPillow.com/Turley will get you massive savings on a set of 4 My Pillow 2.0s. Mike's is a true patriot. He's a friend to this channel, and he's a bona fide American entrepreneur. It's really a great product, so don't wait. Mike told me that these new pillows are selling like hotcakes, and this offer will not last forever. So click on that link in the description below. Use promo code Turley and get your My Pillow 2.0 today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. What do we got, Josh? Johnny the Whiz Kid. Good to see you, my friend. If I join the Insiders Club, is there something like Discord where I can interact and share pop culture with young patriots like me? I'd also like to get you involved in some topics. Oh, okay, very good. What do you think? Yeah, we do. We do have a community board that you can post on, and just go ahead and I think you could get, I think there's even an option where you can do a week for free or whatever. Just try it out for a month, see what you can do. And Hannah and others behind the scenes are very they're very responsive to any needs that you have. So by all means, try it out, and I think you're going to get to share lots of things. And yes, we have live Q&A every Monday night, so we could be talking with each other about some things we can do together. Absolutely. Thanks, Johnny the Whiz Kid. Awesome. SOF reminds me of Taken by Liam Neeson. Surprise. I like that. Very good. Sound of Freedom, or Suspense, sorry. Sound of Freedom is it is intense. It is very intense, and it's a real life Taken, basically, is what it is. That's right. It's funny though. Yeah, but Taken didn't, I guess it was just at a different time before we really came. It was, I mean, I guess his daughter was an adult age too, or late teens or something like that. Whereas Sound of Freedom, man, I mean, it doesn't shy away from, prepubescent kids getting caught up in this horror. So anyway, there you go. Nick, the diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. I prefer DIE, right? Disney, Netflix, Warner Brothers, and Discovery have all been fired. You got it, Nick. I saw that as well. Actually, we talked about that. Can't remember if it might have been the live Q&A that we had, but that's right. Now, the question is why, right? The question is Disney, Netflix, Warner Brothers, Discovery, are they finally abandoning all this woke nonsense, recognizing that it's box office poison, right? Or are they just the very fact that they're losing so much money, particularly Disney? Remember, their last CEO ended up getting fired because he was so horrible, cost the company so much money having gone woke. Is it the fact that they have to cut costs? And so, who do you cut first? So you cut these extraneous, pathetic DEI officers. That's basically what you do. So we'll see. Time will tell the extent to which they've pushed off DEI. But it's a loser. It's that we already have a letter, I think, of 13 attorney generals across red states that have sent letters to all the major Fortune 500 companies saying, you know, you're on notice. No DEI. DEI is inherently racially discriminatory, and we will sue you big time, and we will win, obviously, if we catch you doing that. So DEI looks like it's on its way out. So great observation, Nick. Mitchell, my friend, do you think it's too late to de-escalate the war due to Biden sending a reserves into Europe? It's funny. I like the way you posed the question because I think you get to the rub of it. But I don't know the extent to which this is an actual escalation. I know that's the way it's being framed on Twitter and a lot of right-wing media. So if you don't know what Mitchell's talking about here, Biden authorized the military to call up 3,000 reservists to support operations in Europe. Now, the reason why I'm a little concerned by the way it's being presented on Twitter and other platforms is because at this point, as I understand it, it remains to actually be seen whether or not they are actually deployed, right? So Defense Secretary Austin, we do not know if he actually plans to deploy these reservists to Europe anytime soon. They've simply been officially authorized for deployment. So that is, in military speak, that is a distinction. They've been authorized, but they haven't actually been deployed as of yet, as I understand it. Again, I know there's a lot of hoopla over this on Twitter, but keep a couple of things in mind. 3,000 troops is nothing. It hardly remotely suggests Biden's ready to go to war on behalf of Ukraine. If we're 300,000 troops, that's a whole different conversation. The deployment, from what I understand, from what I've read, is actually, ironically, an admission that the U.S. military's training mission in Europe, along with the deployment of several other new brigades after the invasion, is actually getting a bit spent. It suggests that the U.S. military presence in Europe is under strain because, as I understand it, were the 3,000 to be sent to Europe, it would not actually change the force levels in Europe. It replaces personnel who are already basically done with their deployment. So I got to admit, I may be wrong on this, Mitchell. We'll see how it plays out. But I actually think it's a big nothing burger at this point. Time will tell, and I'll certainly adjust the analysis. So we'll see. Sorry, Josh just sent me a message. We're not getting comments, aren't updating on StreamYard. I'm sending the comments to you on Slack. Okay, sorry, I'm getting instant messaging here. Very good. So I think it's a nothing burger. We will see, especially in light of the NATO summit, which was a total bust. So we'll see, though, Mitchell. I'll adjust. The moment I start seeing some escalation, you'll be the first to know. But right now, I don't think there's anything really going on there. So I think a lot of it is just a whole lot of nothing. So we'll see. All right. Anything else, Josh? All right. Let me switch. Josh is sending me this instant messaging. So where are we? We just finished with Mitch. Sorry, guys. Just give me a second here. All right. Yes, man. Thank you, sir, for the gift. Has anyone ever been far, even as decided to use, even go, want to do, look more like? Awesome. Yes, man. Very good. Have one on me. Russ and Mary, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Russ and Mary Comstock, have you seen recent Peterson Robert Bryce interview talking climate change policies? Raising costs so high in Germany that an EV builder moved to China and Angola, got a loan for solar when they have reserve of natural gas. I have not seen. I enjoy Peterson's interviews. They're very good. I have not seen that, but yes, that's the net effect of this climate insanity. Basically, what you're seeing here is the WEF all in via George Soros and so forth, all in on climate apocalypticism in their ideology. So they're ideologically nuts right there. So they think that if you vote wrong, you're going to kill us. So that's why they think they're justifying all these color revolutions and overturning your wrong political choices, right? All in the name of democracy, of course. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing is they're all in on green energy, and they're investing early on green energy, believing that this is the oil now of the 21st century. So they're all planning on being the next, what is it, Vanderbilts and Rockefellers and all that. They're going to be the new wealth of the green age, very similar to what Al Gore did after he got into all this environmental apocalypticism. I think his net worth went up 2,000%, something akin to that, to $500 million and the like. So yes, they're using billionaires and bureaucrats coming together to force you and me to comply with this new world that they want to build at our expense, so that we end up freezing in the winter and sweltering in the summer and starving. It's not going to work. China's pushing back against it. Russia's pushing back against it. Sub-Saharan Africa's pushing back against it. The Middle East is pushing back against it. Brazil is pushing back against it. It's not going to work worldwide. But the question is, how much damage can they do here in the West in the process? So, and for me, it also shows how much they can hamper us and our ability in the West to flourish, while the rest of the world kind of leaves us, 90% of the world leaves us behind and enters into a whole new multipolar world. So we'll have to keep an eye on all that, Russ and Mary. Absolutely. Servant of God, thank you, my friend. Hear about studios wanting the strike to drag out? Maybe so. Do they? Again, Hollywood, we can't underestimate how much Hollywood has lost in terms of revenue and in terms of influence. I mean, it's like CNN. It really does seem to be going the way of the Jurassic Age. Hollywood had a golden era. Hollywood, rightfully so, was a beautiful, wonderful era at one time. It got woke, it got ugly, it got degenerate. But now it's still married to an old world that's fading away, an old modern industrial model of society, and a new postmodern digital world is rising. And Hollywood just is not it. I've read articles on that. Hollywood's simply not been able to adapt to it at this point. So Netflix, which has been able to adapt, but because they went woke, they're suffering. But Netflix and streaming services like Hulu and so forth, and YouTube and BitChute and Rumble and all that, what they have is they have immediate user data available to them to see what people want to watch. Amazon and so forth. They have immediate user data to see what people want to see, want to watch, and then they're able to create content fairly cheaply, fairly inexpensively. Yasui, as the Japanese would say, and very quickly, and then also off in multiple episodes, so you can encourage binge watching and the like, and then they stream it to you instantaneously. And that Hollywood just can't compete with that at this point. They still have unions. They still have, gophers. They still have, you name it. Just they have these massive production budgets because of the California unions forcing. That's why so many of them moved out to Georgia and the Atlanta area. But even that now is going woke and leftist and the like. So anyway, that's why you're seeing these amazing independent films like Sound of Freedom, or are you seeing the Daily Wire getting into filmmaking and, What is a Woman and all that? I mean, now you could even show films on Twitter. I mean, the world's changed and they're just being left behind at this point. So yes, I think the strike is dragging out in more ways than one, both intentionally and unintentionally. Mitchell, you're back, my friend. Also, have you heard of the ATF rating FFLs to find clerical errors to shut them down? How do you think this will play them out in the court? all of your, let's see. Give me a sec here. Oh, federal fire. Okay. Again, so you're dealing with a Supreme Court that for almost 20 years has basically struck down every attempt at gun control. And there's a book out on that. What is it? Is it Ideas Have Consequences? I think it's entitled Ideas Have Consequences. And it's on the Roberts Court and their upholding of federalism, particularly with the Second Amendment. The federal government is not allowed to step in and curtail your right to own a weapon, period. I mean, outside of non-discriminate firearms like machine guns, right? The key constant for self-defense is discriminatory shooting. I have to be able to kill the perpetrator without killing my block of neighbors. So that's why I can't have cluster bombs. Can't hit the guy who's trying to rob my house with nukes, right? Or machine guns. It has to be discriminate. And so as long as the weapon is discriminate, AR-15s, you name it, as long as they're discriminate, the states can't come in and impede your ability to both buy and increasingly to carry. So it's very, very fascinating stuff. So that's where I would just go with that precedent that's been going on for 20 years. And with the addition of, Kavanaugh and Comey Barrett and so forth, that seems to only continue. Maryland Dakoti, do you think World War III will be the end of the world? Well, it could be if it happens. I'm just not seeing it though. I'm not seeing it. I mean, just NATO looked so weak. Let me see. I've got a couple of questions here. Let me see if I've got any NATO questions in there. No, I'd say Biden canceling the student debt, which will get shot down again. Yes. Hold on. Let me get what you saw in NATO this week. I mean, it was a bust. It was a total bust. The counteroffensive is going nowhere. Bakhmut has fallen. The so-called Prigozhin coup has collapsed. And the polls against any active NATO involvement in the war are stronger than ever. So NATO, as I see it, is not going to war with Ukraine. Again, I can always adjust. But right now at this point, they're talking big, yet they're providing technology. That's part of Soros's 1993 strategy. If you go to his 1993 essay, NATO and the New World Order, it's online. You can read it. It's actually, remember, everything Soros believes he's written about. He made his billions and then he likened himself to being a scholar, and all he did was just write books all day. And what he argues starting in 1993 is NATO populations do not have the stomach for mass casualties. Okay, George W. Bush proved that. Obviously, he would prove that in the Iraq offensive in 2002 to 2006. There's just no way around that. If you want to guarantee Vietnam rebellion on steroids, go to war with Russia. Okay, it's just not going to happen among NATO countries. But Eastern European nations don't have such, what do you want to call it? They don't have such reservations. For whatever reason, Eastern European populations are tough, they're strong, and they can take casualties, as can Russian populations. They can take casualties. So what you do is you supply Eastern European troops with NATO technology, weapons, and strategy and intelligence and the like. So that's what they're doing. They're using NATO technology with Ukrainian troops. And it was a plan all along to contain Russia. Use Eastern European bodies, but provide them with NATO, build-up, as it were, NATO equipment and technology. And that's what we're doing. It's a horrifically, meat-grinding, gross strategy that's getting hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians killed in the process. But as long as that's NATO's strategy, they're not going to actually put Western European or American troops in harm's way. They know the whole thing will collapse as a result. So I don't think we have to worry about that. So if something like a World War III were to happen, I would be actually more concerned with Taiwan. I don't see China militarily taking Taiwan. I don't think they have to. I think they're playing the long game, as China normally does, and they're just going to wait because Taiwan's opposition party is actually, I wouldn't say pro-China, but they are pro-rapprochement in some way with China. So they're just waiting for that party to assume power, which they may do in the next election, and that may be all that's needed. So we'll see. But if something hot were to happen and ignite around Taiwan, that's where I would start getting really nervous with the neocons and what they would be willing to do. Is it Jules? With Biden still going through to cancel $39 billion of student debt, will there be any repercussions then going against the SCOTUS this blatantly after they ruled against it? Yeah. This definitely seems to be a slap in the face of the court, and it may be. It would be interesting to see if it was ruled as a contempt of court. That would be very interesting to see. But again, I think this thing is just for show. It's going to get smacked down again, and it's so bizarre. It's so strange to see what Biden is doing there. I mean, bizarre and strange. Look, we're having polls coming up showing young people are ditching the Democrats. The economy sucks. They have high unemployment. They're becoming, we're finding, more populist, more nationalist, more prone to the right. And the Democrats are losing them. So they're just trying to buy them back like they did before the midterms. I don't know how much it'll work, though. MDE, I would love for liberals to quit taking theology class from politicians in America. Also, what's with Christians not asserting the claim that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values? Yes, I know. Yes. Well, liberals taking theology class from politicians in America is very easy to explain. In relation to your actual question, what's with Christians not asserting the claim that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values? At the heart of post-World War II conservatism, which I despise, this channel in many ways is a warpath against post-World War II conservatism. At the heart of post-World War II conservatism was the notion that you could privatize Christianity, or just faith in general. You could privatize faith while still maintaining its public value. You could privatize faith while still maintaining its public value. Okay? And so if you think about a medieval city, where was the church? And you look at the urban planning, right? It was right at the heart of the city, the most single prominent, tallest building in the whole city. You look at a New England Commonwealth, where's the church? Right on the town green, right in the heart of the town, as it were. Most prominent building, steeple, and the like. Look at modern urban planning today. Where's the church in modern urban planning? Right? It's nowhere. It's been pushed out of the public square. And if it's anywhere, it's going to be in the place of consumerism next to pizzerias and dry cleaners. And conservatives were cool with that. By and large, I mean, mainstream conservatives were perfectly cool. They certainly didn't do anything to stop it. But they thought you could maintain family values, traditional values, you could maintain Christian values, but recast them as family values, traditional values, right? Conservative values, but totally amputated from the life of the church. Okay, the church, broadly speaking. And it's been a disaster. You can't do that. Why? Because private life operates by fundamentally different dynamics than public life. Public is objective. Private is subjective. Public is obligatory. Private is optional. Public applies to all. Private applies to only some. Just think taxes. Taxes versus what you do on a weekend, right? Recreation. One is obligatory. The other is optional. And whether you like it or not, when you relocate the church into the private sphere of life, as we have done post-World War II, whether you like it or not, you cannot relocate the church into the private sphere of life without reconfiguring its truth claims and its moral claims as mere personal private opinion and nothing more. The church becomes subjective, it becomes optional, and it applies only to some. That's what happens when you privatize the church. So what you have today is you have your hip, cool Christians, post-World War II Christians, who buy into that social reconfiguration with the privatization of the church, and therefore they can't even conceive of a society where the church is public in nature. And if it is, all we're doing is burning witches and, and persecuting and Spanish Inquisitions and all. That's it. That's all the church does when it's public. That's it. As if our current public institutions aren't guilty of their own horrors, i.e. World War II, right? So that's why, I mean, the church has been privatized, and as a privatized institution, it is entirely optional, and therefore it cannot be considered to be an intrinsic part of our nation and its heritage, and a heritage that ought to continue into the future. So there you go. That would be my answer. All right, gang. I think that is it. Correct, Josh? I will look a little bit more, but that looks like it's it. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. I love you. Stay safe. Stay praying. Okay, and we will see you on Monday. Amazing stuff happening. A new world is rising. Traditionalist world. You're at the center of it. God bless you guys. Take care.